Everyone asks the wrong question when they start house hunting. They ask, how much home can I afford? But the real question is, how much home do I actually need? Because the bank will almost always approve you for more than you should actually spend. And I see buyers, especially first-time home buyers, go straight to the top of that number and then they feel stuck. So today, I want to talk you through how to decide what's actually right for your life, not just what you can technically qualify for. So the biggest mistake I see is that people shop based on their max approval and not their comfort level and their budget, not their lifestyle, and not their future self. Just the max. And I'm a really, really big advocate for keeping your housing payment around 25% of your take-home pay if you can, not gross income take-home. Now, why am I an advocate for that? Because flexibility really, really matters. This is the biggest expense line item in your budget, very likely. And if you buy at the top of your budget, something bad will happen. It almost always does. Your taxes go up, something breaks, insurance goes up, or life changes. And if your payment is comfortable, everything else in life gets easier. Managing and budgeting for repairs, travel, investing, just breathing. You shouldn't be buying a house and sacrificing your future self. You should be buying a house as part of an overall financial plan for financial health. And just because you can buy something does not mean you should. Future you deserves some breathing room. Now, here are some things that I look at with buyers when I sit down with them. We don't actually start with price. We start with a comfortable monthly payment. Then we reverse engineer from there. And I ask, what's 25% and how much do you want left over every month? What does your life day to day and week to week actually look like? What do you want your money doing besides housing? Because people forget your mortgage isn't the only cost. You're also paying property taxes, insurance, utilities, maintenance, furniture, cleaning, time. More house does not just cost more one time, it costs more forever. You heat it, you cool it, you furnish it, you clean it, you maintain it, and that all adds up fast. And sometimes after you've spent the money to buy it up front, you don't even realize how much it's costing you later down the line. After we start talking about that, we really get into the conversation of needs versus want versus a future fantasy self. This is one of the biggest conversations that I have with my buyers. Now, I don't necessarily get into ego or judgment. That's not really my job here, but I do ask questions. I ask questions like, what does your week actually look like? What do you do day to day? And how do you use your home now? If someone tells me that they want a home gym, I'll ask, oh, are you working out now? And if the answer is no, you might be buying space for a future fantasy version of yourself that may never exist. But if the person tells me, yes, I do, I work out 4 days a week and I want to save on the commute time by having a space in my own home and I can give up that gym membership because of that. That's different. Now, a gourmet kitchen won't magically make someone cook that doesn't cook, and a gym won't magically make someone work out. But if you already do these things and you enjoy these things, then yes, let's build space for them. Some other questions that I also ask my buyers is, how long do you plan on staying in this home? What does your family look like now versus what could it potentially look like later? Do you have guests that actually visit a lot? This comes in huge because I get people who tell me they want a guest bedroom, but they only get guests once a year. Maybe you don't actually need a full bedroom for that. Maybe you can put a Murphy bed in your family room or in your office. What do you want your commute to look like? What is your actual lifestyle? Do you spend a lot of time at home? My husband and I are huge homebodies. Our home has to feel like a vacation for us in the summer because we don't get to leave in the summers because we both work so much in the summers. So our home needs to feel like a vacation in the summers. And a lot of people buy for the life that they imagine instead of the one that they actually live. And that fantasy self-purchasing really gets expensive. So here are 3 scenarios where I tend to see people overbuy. So in the first-time home buyer category, I see this as they're going for the max. They want to get the most they can for their money. I know that when my husband and I bought our first home, we got the most we could for our money because we had unreasonable expectations for how much square footage we actually need. But remember that this doesn't need to be your forever home. Starter homes are supposed to be stepping stones. So focus on your needs for your actual real life and maybe a couple wants that would help make things more comfortable or beautiful. But it's probably not going to be everything that you would want. Second way I see people fall into this overbuying category is in the move-up buyer category. I see it especially in families with teenagers, people who may be starting to be teenagers. I see it a lot is that they're bursting at the seams and they're out of space in their current home and they buy big, but what they don't think about is that the kids are starting to leave. The population of that household is going to start reducing, and then suddenly it's just them in a big house, and that expense stays even if the kids don't. And the third scenario I see where a lot of people overbuy is the downsizers, actually, because they say they want smaller, but no one in the household wants to give anything up. So they end up basically in the same size property, but just a condo instead of a house. So if you're thinking about downsizing, you actually really need to downsize your stuff first, then buy. This is really, really important in there. I've helped a lot of downsizers, and you may get someone who's like, well, yeah, I want to downsize, but I don't want to give up any of my tools and my massive 3-car garage. Well, you're not going to be downsizing then. Let's really take a good hard look at what we have here. Next, I love to talk about storage versus square footage. I get a lot of people that say, hey, we don't actually need a lot of space. The floor plan matters more than anything. And that is 100% true. And I see people miss this a lot on their showings. Square footage is not the same as functionality. So you can have a big house with almost no storage, or a smaller house with amazing storage. So when I'm going through a property with someone, with a buyer, I point out specific things like cabinet space. Do you notice that there is only one upper cabinet and all of the lower cabinets are XYZ? Did you notice that there is not any hall or entryway closets in this home? Did you notice that the garage depth is really small, so you may be able to fit a car or storage, but maybe not both? And what is the layout like? Because layout and flow can make a big difference there as well. It's really, really easy to get distracted by pretty finishes, but then you later realize when you go to move in that there's nowhere to put anything, and that's a problem. So again, I just want to reiterate, making sure that you're downsizing and you're decluttering as part of the pre-purchasing process. It's going to help you be really more granular about what you actually need. And I do get people who ask me, is it ever okay to stretch on the budget, right? And actually, sometimes stretching does make sense, but only if certain things are true. I am much more comfortable with a buyer. Ultimately, it's the buyer's decision, but I'm much more comfortable with a buyer stretching when they have significant reserves. Maybe they have a really healthy 1 to 2 year emergency fund in their backlog. They also have extra invested funds. Another way that I would feel more secure is if they had multiple income streams, or if the property itself produces income, which is called a house hack. And that can be actually really strategic. They might be buying at the top of their approval, but it's increasing the amount of income streams they have, and they have good reserves. That's a little bit different. But if you're maxing out your budget with absolutely no cushion, that's really risky. Again, if you're maxing out with rental income, strong reserves, or a long-term plan that includes your ability to afford that property, that's a little bit different. Scenarios are not one size fits all. We navigate these things as they come up. One of the questions that I think we should really address here is it worse to buy too big or too small? And I will tell you, in my opinion, it is always worse to buy too big, because our life and our things expand to fill the container that you give it. When someone buys more house, they fill it with more stuff, and that more stuff costs more. They already have more costs associated with having more square footage, and then what happens as a result is they feel overwhelmed. When people buy too small as a mistake, it's usually because life changed unexpectedly. When they buy too big, it's usually because they planned poorly or they planned for things that didn't actually affect their lifestyle. Conservative but reasonable is really the sweet spot here. So I'm going to give you some examples from my personal life because we actually have examples on both sides of the spectrum. My husband and I have lived in 200 square feet, which we lived in for 4 years in an RV as we traveled, as we made sure that Yakima was the right home for us. We lived in 200 square feet. We then lived in 750 square feet, and now we're in our current home, which is just under 2,200 square feet. And this home has the 750 square foot house and the 2,200 square foot house. And we bought comfortably, and I'm so glad we did. It really gave us financial flexibility, a flexibility to be able to renovate and cash flow renovations. And it also gave us flexibility in our life. And that gives me the ability to breathe easier every single day. Comfortable housing payments give you options, and options are everything. On the flip side of the spectrum, we bought as much home as we could. Luckily, we did not buy the tippity top of our budget, our first home, thank goodness. We bought as much home as we could afford, and I did not understand the toll that all the extra space would take on me, like mentally and physically, of like needing to maintain the space and clean it and all the extra maintenance. I should have bought a house that was half the size of the first house we bought and with less floors. So if you're trying to figure out what makes sense for you, this is exactly the kind of conversation I have with buyers every day. We're not doing, high pressure. We're not doing a sales pitch, but I am going to ask you questions to help you make sure that you're making a good decision and you're not making a decision out of a place of, I need more space to store more stuff that I don't touch. I'm not going to be judgmental about it, but I am going to ask questions, and then we're going to strategize. Now, you can always reach out and schedule a consult. My email is in the description, and just so you know, it is corieburke@gmail.com. And if this video helped you think differently about buying, make sure you're subscribed. I talk about real estate in a very real life way here, and I'll see you in the next one.